Welcome back to the double leg. I'm one half of the show, Hey Jai Picks. The other half of the show, the parlay. Join me in to break down some Dana White Contender Series Week 4. Let's get into it. We got Week 4. Through 3 weeks, we've had 15 winners and 14 contracts given out. First week, last week, we had a fighter that won and didn't get a contract. And I was actually pretty surprised because it was Josephine Knudsen, and she had a good performance, didn't get a finish. Probably could have gotten a finish, probably could have gone for more for a finish. And it seems like anyone who wins gets a contract. She did not. So going into this week, we got some fire fights. I'm not going to lie. Whether they win in by finish or not, I think a lot of these guys will end up getting a contract if they get a win. So, yeah, we got a lot of kickboxers on here. We got Dylan Salvador with a win over Giga Chikadze. We got Yusri Belgaroui, who had the fights against Alex Pereira, actually got a win against Alex Pereira. A trilogy, lost twice, but did get a win. And another or a few other good prospects here. Greasy heavyweight fight, though. But, yeah. We're going to go through, give our predictions, and we'll have our bets available for you for the Dana White Contender Series. Just stay up to date at the double egg on the Instagram to get notified when those are available. They will be available through the link in the description. You can also sign up for the double egg premium there. So if you want to get all the UFC bets that we have for every UFC card, you can hop on that. But thoughts on the Contender Series card going into this before we start breaking it down?
Yeah, a lot of kickboxers, like you said, a lot of former glory kickboxers as well. Yeah, you got Yusri, who's fought Alex Pereira 3 times and now trains with him at Glover Teixeira's gym for MMA. And he's also fought Israel Adesanya twice in glory, lost to him both times. So interesting prospects on this card. I think this is one of those cards you're going to look back in 3 to 4 years and think, yeah, you remember this dude in the UFC who's beating the shit out of everybody? He was on that week of Dana White's Contender Series. Like, there might be a couple of them coming off this card. So there's some talent here for sure.
Yeah, a lot of talent. I'm looking forward to, and they're not like some crazy matchups where they're just definitely going to win. Like, they're going up against some good guys too. So
yeah.
It's should be very interesting. Let's get into it. We'll break it down. Starting with the main event, a lightweight bout here. Dylan Salvador, as I touched on earlier, coming in at -160 against Balaji Okai, sitting at +130. This is going to be a scrap for sure. 30 years of age for Dylan Salvador, 5'9" for him, 5-1 in MMA, 7-1 in MMA for Balaji Oki, 27 years of age for him, coming in here fighting out of Belgium. I believe he is Nigerian, though, but he fights and trains in Belgium. France is the nationality for Dylan Salvador. I touched on it earlier. Salvador has a kickboxing fight in glory against Giga Chikadze and beat him. So, I mean, you look at the striking there, it's definitely high level when he's on the feet. That was at 143 pounds. He's going to be fighting this at 155. He's gone back and forth between featherweight and lightweight in his MMA career as well. Fought on Eagle FC 44 back in January 2022. And he's got a bunch of wins by submission. So, I mean, if you just look at how he gets his wins, you might not know he's a really good kickboxer. But if you watch his fights, you'll definitely see that because the way he beats up people's legs, they start falling to the ground, and he's able to finish them off on the ground, which is very impressive for a guy that has an extensive kickboxing career. If you look at Balaji Oki, 7-1, he hasn't lost since his professional debut in 2018. He is a very good striker as well. I mean, his fight, if you watch some of his fights, he's aggressive. He's durable. He can mix it up as well. He had that fight with Nair Malikian, who was 13-0, an Armenian fighter, 13-0, and it was a dog fight. He was kind of back and forth, and it was a really fun fight to watch. But coming in here, Salvador's the favorite. Oki, the dogs. I don't think there's any wrong side. Like, either way, if you take one of these fighters, you're going to have confidence going into the fight that they could pull it off. So I don't know. Maybe you'd look at it and say it's more closer to a 50-50, but what are you thinking on this one?
Yeah, it is tough. I mean, both of these guys, there's a lot to like on both sides. Like you mentioned, man, Salvador's got the glory kickboxing background. Beating a guy like Chikadze in strictly kickboxing is impressive because we see it time and time again in the UFC. Like Chikadze is on another level than a lot of guys he fights, if it's standing at range. So to beat him in that sport makes you kind of, keep your eye on him and watch out for that. And the submissions thing was super interesting to me too. Like you look at that, you're like, wait a second, this is a glory kickboxer who's very, very skilled. Why has he got all these submissions on his record? And like you said, man, the leg kicks are nasty. He finds them, he hides them well, and he does a lot of damage when he lands them. And you call that club and sub. Gets his opponents hurt, gets them on the ground, and it's a good sign that he can get submissions as well. Like he's not just a knockout or bust or has to keep it on the feet. Like this dude is a pretty well-rounded mixed martial arts artist already for having that glory kickboxing background. Like you don't see that too often at this level. So that's super impressive. And he's a good counter striker too. You look at Oki, he's pretty big for the division. Like when you look at him, at least on his tape, like he's bigger than guys. Hasn't fought the best competition always. I know he did get that win over the 13-0, and that was impressive. Like you said, back and forth. Showed that he can go 3 rounds. He can fight hard, and he's kind of a dog. So that's a good sign too. I like this fight for the fact that if he gets in trouble on the feet, because he's a good striker on the feet, Oki is. But if he gets in trouble, just being outmatched, he can wrestle, like, and he's strong too. So maybe he does get his hands locked and taken down. I don't think you're going to see Salvador. Of course, he has the submissions on his record, but it's not like they're coming off of his back or he's getting these crazy submissions or anything. So it makes it super interesting because on the feet, Oki has the power to put him down as well. Like if he catches him right, like he's a strong, powerful striker. And he kind of, the one thing I don't like here is if Eddie stays at range and he can't find the knockout, he kind of just uses that jab every now and then looks for one big power shot on the feet. Like I don't think he's going to win a decision if this thing stays on the feet for 3 rounds to a guy like Salvador. Other than that, though, I think we're in for a hell of a fight. Like, this is a really, really fun one. I'm going to stick with Salvador. I think that the gas tank is probably better, and I think Oki might need a better gas tank here if he's going to be taking body kicks and leg kicks. And, if he can't get the fight to the ground and he burns a lot of energy trying, I think he'll be in some serious trouble as the fight goes on. So, yeah, I'm going to stick with Salvador here, but this is going to be a fun fight.
Yeah, this is a really tough one because I want to lean the guy in Belgaroui who's like bigger. I mean, like 5'9" at lightweight, you got to be pretty thick. You got to be pretty athletic to be 5'9" at lightweight, or at least maybe even a wrestler. Like Salvador as a kickboxer coming in here against a lightweight who's 5'10", but also, I mean, he's pretty well built for
Right.
weight. So he's probably going to look a little bit bigger going in there. I don't know if Salvador's put on like some decent size since, I mean, he lost or last fought in featherweight at 2021 or 2022 in January. But he's coming in here. I think if he attacks the legs early and he's able to chop those legs down early, he could take over as the fight goes on. He's not like some massive power puncher in that Salvador is. Like you look at his fights in glory, it's a lot of decisions. And even in MMA, he's only got 1 knockout. So he's gonna have to chop the legs. I want to lean Belgaroui as the underdog because I do think this is kind of 50-50. So by that logic, if I was going to bet on it, I'd probably bet on Belgaroui. But who do the UFC rather have? I mean, we are in Paris this weekend in the UFC. You got the France fighter here. It's a tough one. For the sake of the show, I'm going to go with Belgaroui. But yeah, it's a tough one. I think both guys have a very, very solid shot to win. A heavyweight bout here. This is going to be a very greasy one. And honestly, I don't want to see either of these guys in the UFC, but I do believe the winner will probably end up getting a contract because that's just where the heavyweight division is at. Chandler Cole coming in at plus 380. Thomas Petersen coming in at minus 555. 7-1 for Thomas Petersen. Chandler Cole 10-3. 4-1 in his last 5. Both men 28 years of age. 5'10" there for Chandler Cole. He's probably going to be every bit of 265 as well. And you look at the reach, like Chandler Cole got that reach, 75 inches for him, 72 inches for Thomas Petersen, 6'1" 1 for him. Coming into this one, saw Chandler Cole in the Ultimate Fighter, as you saw in the picture there as well. He had that like spinning wheel kick that nearly put out his opponent on the Ultimate Fighter, but ultimately lost that fight. Goes out on the regional scene, beats an 8-11 fighter, round 1 TKO. Next fight out, takes on a 5-17 fighter and gets a first round stoppage. So those are his 2 guys that he's beaten since the Ultimate Fighter. He actually fought in the PFL and fought Ante Dalia, who was the PFL champ of last year, I believe. And he got finished in the first round there, but he was only a plus 285 underdog to Ante Dalia. So there's that. He's coming in here as a pretty big underdog against Thomas Petersen, whose only loss is to Waldo Cortez Acosta. I watched his last 2 fights against Richard Foster and Corey Mogenberg, who are 2 pretty older guys. If you look at those fights, not impressive in the least bit, to be honest. They were ground and pound finishes, gets guys to the ground, uses his weight, and these guys just can't get up, and they get ground and pounded out. So I honestly hate this fight. I absolutely hate it. Probably won't bet on it. I'll be pulling for Chandler Cole to pull off a spinning wheel kick. But, yeah, I don't know. What are you thinking on this one?
Yeah, there's just not a whole lot to love on either side, especially like spectating wise. Like Cole, I hate the fact that he's 5'10", like 365, and he has to probably cut a few pounds to get to 365. I hate that.
265.
Yeah, sorry. 365, 5'10", 365. But at the end of the day, like, if he gets taken down, I don't see the athleticness or even the length to use leverage to really get up from Petersen, in my opinion. He is powerful, like on the feet, like you mentioned the kicks. He is explosive for being that short and big, like believe it or not, and he's scrappy on the feet. But I just don't think Petersen, if he's smart, gives him the chance to get any of those strikes going. Petersen, like you mentioned, wrestling, he's heavy with his wrestling, like he uses his weight to really wear on guys. He does hold some power on the feet. I don't think he's really going to stand and go for that game plan here, though, unless he's just really trying to get some big finish to get into the UFC, get on the roster. But I think he's just going to look to come across, make it an exhausting fight for Cole, get in the clinch, work some decent shots there until he gets the fight to the ground or tries to at least, because he's a pretty strong dude, and he's going to be bigger than Cole here. He does have a lot of first-round finishes, though, but against lesser and lesser competition. So just greasy. And I hate taking a heavyweight who's minus whatever because you have the chance always of getting knocked out at this level. So, yeah, I'll be rooting for Cole. I'm going to pick Petersen. I think he just does make it boring and either gets the TKO or a nasty decision, but I'll be rooting for Cole here too.
Yeah, I mean, I guess for the sake of the pick, I'm going to take Thomas Petersen because I think he probably takes him to the ground and uses his weight and probably ground and pounds him out. But
yeah,
not a chance that I really want to bet on that by any means. Definitely going to be pulling for Chandler Cole. He's like a Chris Barnett type build. And,
exactly. That's perfect.
We'll see if he could do anything in the UFC if he does get there. But yeah, probably going to take a loss. Featherweight bout here, Timothy Cuamba coming in at plus 119 against Mateo Vogel, who's sitting at minus 149. Vogel out of Canada, 8-2 in his professional career, 6-1 for Cuamba, 4-1 in his last 5. 24 years of age for him, 27 years of age for Vogel. Very similar in height and reach there. You see that is the same 5'8" and a 71-inch reach. Coming into this one, Mateo Vogel. From Canada, like I said, he's been fighting out in the BFL, which is the Battlefield League out in Vancouver, British Columbia, in Canada. That's the regional promotion there. He is the champion there, and got a win by decision there to take it, and defended it twice. Got a round 3 ground and pound finish to a 2-0 fighter, and then a round 3 rear naked choke to an 18-8 fighter to defend it a second time. His only losses are to Damon Blackshear, who we all know, by decision, and a loss by illegal upkick. So basically a DQ loss there. And then he's got a win over Garrett Armfield, who we saw last week at UFC Singapore. If you watch that fight, I don't know if you watched it, but Garrett Armfield was putting it on him, like busted his face open. And now that fight, I believe Garrett Armfield didn't have anybody that he knew like in his corner because he had to like travel there on short notice for some reason or whatever. Either way, he didn't have anyone in his corner. He's putting it on him. Like Mateo Vogel's face is bloodied up. Comes out in round 2, makes one mistake. Mateo Vogel gets the back and then keeps it there and ends up getting a rear naked choke. So I mean, he's a dog. Mateo Vogel's a dog. He's never been finished. If he gets hit, he's got a good chin and he's able to absorb the damage and fight his way back into the fight and usually get a finish. But Timothy Cuamba has got a good stand-up game as well. Very solid with the kicks and the hands. Fought 3 times in CFFC. And his only loss is to Ivan Tena, and it was a round 1 rear naked choke. Who Ivan Tena is 6-1 now, so in hindsight, that's not a bad loss by any means. But this is going to be a close one. I think this is going to be another banger fight. Besides the heavyweight fight on this card, I think they're all really good fights. What are you thinking in this one?
Yeah, it's tough to pick on this one too because Vogel, like you touched on, man, the submission game is really good. Striking, what I've seen at least, could use some work. He's not the best, most technical striker by any means, and Cuamba is a pretty damn good striker, and he's powerful too. So what happens when Vogel can't get to the positions he wants on the ground? What happens when he can't get to the ground at all and just gets picked apart or knocked out on the feet? Like, that's a possibility. And on the other hand, Cuamba sometimes uses his striker or his striking to get in close and then use the wrestling to get takedowns. And, if he does that, there's a chance Vogel could submit him, like even off his back, like Vogel's that good. I don't think Cuamba is going to want to go to the ground here. I do think if he's using any kind of wrestling, is to keep the fight upright. And if he does that, I could see Vogel just being, going for it all with submissions and the wrestling. And if that fails, I think he's screwed. So it makes it tough to pick. Like Vogel is the -1, I think it was 149 on our sheet favorite. I almost want to lean the dog because I think Vogel's only chance really is to find a submission here. And it is good enough to where he definitely could. Because he has beaten guys like Armfield, and just to go to a decision with Damon Blackshear shows how good his jiu-jitsu probably is, if he can survive that. So I want to take Vogel. I really, really do, because of the level of competition, because of how good his ground game is. But I think Cuamba's good enough to keep it on the feet. And if he does, I think he wins. So I'm going to go with the dog here with Cuamba.
They actually fought on the same card. That was when Mateo Vogel fought Damon Blackshear. Timmy Cuamba fought James Lyons on the same card, CFFC. So a little bit of a familiarity there. But, I mean, like you said, it's probably going to be the advantage to Timmy Cuamba on the feet because he's got, I think, sharper hands and sharper defense. It's really the defense that lacks with Mateo Vogel. Like, he's got some pretty solid hands himself. It's just he gets hit a lot. So if he can survive on the feet, he's going to have to land something significant back to Timmy Cuamba to even it out. If he does take it to the ground, that's probably where he wants it. Can he get it there? The wrestling, as it looks like, great based off the film that I've watched. He almost will stand and strike with you until he's hurt. And then he's like, all right, I got to get this thing to the ground. It's not like his go-to game plan. So it's tough to take Vogel at the chalk, honestly. So I see the value on the dog as well. I guess I'll take him for the pick, Timmy Cuamba for the pick. We'll see where the line moves to as the next couple days go on here, but seems like the lines will move significantly one way or the other because they usually don't come out until like 3 or 4 days before. There's a lot of very volatility with it, so we'll keep an eye on it. For the sake of the show, I'm gonna go with Timmy Cuamba. Gets it done. Probably, maybe by decision, maybe by knockout. You never really know with Mateo Vogel, but that's the pick. A middleweight bout here. Yusri Belgaroui coming in at -160 against Marco Tulio Silva, who is coming in at +130. 9-1 in his professional career for Marco Tulio. 5-2 for Yusri Belgaroui. Middleweight bout here. You see the 6'5" for Yusri Belgaroui. That obviously jumps off the board. Will he make the 185? It is definitely interesting. You see pictures of him like with Alex Pereira, who we all know is like huge. Yusri Belgaroui looks like he's like 2 or 3 inches taller than him, which is absolutely nuts because Pereira is like 6'4". Belgaroui is a tall dude. and he's going to be much bigger than Tulio coming into this one. We touched on it earlier, but he's fought Alex Pereira 3 times, fought Israel Adesanya twice, lost to Izzy both times. This is in kickboxing. Beat Pereira once and lost to Pereira twice. Now trains with Alex Pereira and Glover Teixeira out in Connecticut, and he's been doing mixed martial arts professionally since 2021. So it's only been 2 years. Long lineage of kickboxing. 5-2 for him. His only losses are by decision. One was a split, and one was unanimous. He's been fighting a lot of UAE Warriors promotion. That's his last fight, and he got a second round knockout back in February. Coming in here against Marco Tulio Silva. He's training out of shoot the box. And if you look at who his last fight was, it was to Well Oliveira, who is 37-20 in his professional career, but is also 6'5". So he's at the same height as Yusri Belgaroui. He managed to knock him out in the first round. So I guess that prepared him a little bit to face a little bit taller guy coming in here. But Belgaroui, the favorite. Who do you liking in this one?
Yeah, it's another tough one because it's like, yeah, you got Belgaroui, who has all the accolades in kickboxing and trains with Pereira and Glover. So you know his whole intention of training with Glover, is probably to get up that grappling and ground game. Try to elevate that. Being a kickboxer, he sees Alex Pereira doing the right things in MMA, following along in those footsteps. He's a great kickboxer, though. He's big, he's tall, he's powerful, he has great distance management, and he'll look to counter guys, sometimes a little too much, in my opinion. I mean, he does have a couple of losses, and I think that all comes down to, getting taken down, because a lot of times you see the kickboxers come in, if you don't have a good, takedown defense, some of these higher level guys will just expose that. We saw it with Junior Tafa in his first fight against Usman. We've seen it, even with Alex against Jan, like he was taken down and controlled a little bit. You just see that happen with some of these, especially the longer, taller guys who aren't used to, I guess, the grappling and wrestling. For Silva, though, shoot the box, and he's kind of one of those guys that you're not going to be blown away by his grappling and all of that coming out of shoot the box, but he's got great Muay Thai, and he's aggressive on the feet. I don't know. I mean, I think he has the ability to get takedowns. He's not like a wrestling heavy guy, and it's not like a traditional wrestling style, but he is strong. And, if he gets the clinch, he'll look for trips and stuff like that. I think he's going to want that fight here, especially like the height and reach difference against a, accomplished guy like Yusri. I think he's going to want to get the fight to the ground and just work from there. He trains at shoot the box. Like if he's not, sharpened and skilled on the ground, he at least, has the knowledge and knows what to do, especially against a guy who's pretty green to MMA and Yusri. So it is hard to pick. I do think Yusri Belgaroui is going to get the win here. I'm thinking maybe knockout, some kind of counter punch. But it is tough, man. It's just you never know on Contender Series. But Yusri is going to be the pick for me.
Yeah, Yusri, or no, not Yusri. Marco Tulio has been knocked out once. That's his only loss. It was a second round knockout back in 2018. When I watched Yusri in MMA, like the fights that I've watched, it's not really like he's like cold cocking dudes with like some big right hand. Like you see Pereira with the left hook, like he hits you with that, it's tough. He hits you with a good right hand, it hurts. Look at Belgaroui when he's hitting dudes. He mixes up his weapons very well. So I mean, he'll throw a lot at you with the length, but it's not really like when he hits you with his hands that he's like cold cocking dudes. Honestly, don't like some of the fights that I've watched from Belgaroui as far as like the grappling exchange. Like he's losing to a guy who's 4-0, who's now 5-2, who is also 6'5" and similar size. He's been fighting at light heavyweight in a lot of these. So I'm interested to see how he does at middleweight. Like the times he did fight at middleweight in his professional career was when he lost decision to Muhammad Osali in UAE. And you look at the other fights, that was his second fight as a professional and his first fight as a professional. So if you look at his fights at middleweight, he's 2-1. I don't know. I feel like if you fade one of these kickboxers, whether it's Salvador or Belgaroui, because they're both favorites, one of them's got to lose. But Tulio coming in here, I think he just goes for the takedowns. Like, he has some solid hands, but if he takes Belgaroui down, can he hold him down? It's going to be tough because you look at Belgaroui, he's fairly good at fighting back to his feet. He's a big dude. He can create a lot of space, but it's not like Tulio's going to have to worry about some type of submissions. So I'm going to go with Marco Tulio Silva in this one. I might look like a complete idiot if Belgaroui goes out there and cold cocks him, but I do think Tulio has the ability to pull off a win here. As a dog, I like that as well, so I'll take him. Welterweight bout. Mitch Ramirez coming in at plus 205 against Carlos Prates or Prates. I don't know how to say it, but he's coming in at minus 255 as a favorite. 16-6 in his professional career. And Mitch Ramirez 7-0 undefeated. Both men 30 years of age. And both men pretty solid frame, 6'2" and 6'1". Long reach for Carlos Prates. It's 78.5 inch reach. So, I mean, he's got some long legs, too. You see the frame on him. You watch him fight. He uses it very well. He's a very good kickboxer. And he's got a win over Charles Oliveira. It's not the real Charles Oliveira. It's some Charles Oliveira who's 8-5. But his name is Charles Oliveira, and he's from Brazil. And he knocked out Charles Oliveira by a jab in round 1. He's got a lot of knockouts on his record. To be exact, he's got 11. And he's been submitted 3 times, though, and he's been knocked out twice. I mean, he's a fun fighter, very fun fighter to watch. And he's got some good competition under his belt. Gaji Murad Abdullayev, who's undefeated 8-0, Russian. And he hasn't lost since that fight. Since that fight in 2019. So it's on a run here. And he's fighting Mitch Ramirez, who I believe is the guy that was complaining that he got booted off the Ultimate Fighter from Conor McGregor bringing his guys in instead of him. But those guys are 155ers. He's a 170. So I don't know what's going on there. I know he's fought at 155 before, but he's 6'2". I think he's a pretty built 170. I don't know if he's making 155, especially with that like turnaround they got to do on the Ultimate Fighter. I don't think that was probably a better thing that he didn't do that. And he's probably getting a better shot here coming in on the Contender Series. So it all worked out for him. He's undefeated. He's coming in as a big favorite. He's also got a number of knockouts on his record, 4 of them to be exact, and a couple subs. Who are you liking in this one? I mean, Prates looks pretty damn good, and he's a sizable favorite, but Mitch Ramirez is undefeated, so there's always value, I think, if you look and see an undefeated guy at big dog money. What are you thinking?
Yeah, Prates does, like, when you watch him come out and he's fighting guys, like in some of his tapes, you can tell he's the bigger dude, and he's long, and he has reach advantages, and he uses it pretty well to his advantage, too. He'll almost like spam kicks, and you don't really know where they're going, leg, body, leg, and then he'll come upstairs with them, making guys guess where the next one's coming. He does have power. He's got good counter punching. You've seen him knock some guys out. He has taken a few submission losses. Mm-hmm. And you know, if for Mitch Ramirez, who watching his tape, like for some reason I just wasn't super impressed. He's a strong dude, but he almost looks slower. He waits too much sometimes for the counters. He's going to be a little bit reach a disadvantage here. He is powerful on the feet when he lands. He just doesn't seem as technical. I think here he has to wrestle. I think he needs to get this fight to the ground and look for submissions. He's got a couple on his record. You look at Prates has a few submission losses. I just think that's going to be where the difference is. But if it stays on the feet, I could see Carlos Prates just kind of picking him apart, using those kicks, and finding the win that way. But the line, it's just hard to get behind a guy who does have a couple losses in that fashion against the guy who's undefeated and has wins by submission too. So it's one of those weird Contender Series fights that, you know, or whole card, really, all these dogs could be barking. For the pick, I'm going to go Carlos Prates. I do think that striking is going to separate himself from Mitch Ramirez here. But at the end of the day, if Mitch Ramirez can work the wrestling, get him tired, get some takedowns, you know, it makes it pretty interesting too. You just got to watch out and not get knocked out on the feet.
Yeah. The big thing with this one is like Prates, very good striking. Ramirez obviously never lost, so he's never been finished. If he can hang in there with Prates and make it kind of a dogfight, make it a I don't want to say not just a standing kickbox. If he just standing kickboxes with him, he's gonna lose. He's gonna lose. That's just what it is. Like Prates mixes up the weapons very well. Long reach. He's gonna pick them apart. If Ramirez could stick around into second round, third round, and maybe make Prates lose some of that confidence coming in here and turn it around, I think he could pull something off. But for the sake of the pick, I'm going to take Prates, and I want to see this guy in the UFC because you watch his film, like his last couple fights, the way he's knocking dudes out, that head kick he had his last time out in the LFA. I mean, back-to-back head kicks. One of them finished or followed it up with some ground and pound, but he's putting dudes out in like some pretty cool fashion. So I want to see him in the UFC. Hope he gets a win, and I'll take him for the pick. Well, that's those are the picks for Dana White Contender Series Week 4. Crazy to think we're already on Week 4.
Yeah.
And a fun card for sure. It's always great to have fights on a Tuesday. Last week we lost one, so we only had 4. Hopefully we don't lose any here. I believe the fighter that got removed from that one got a fight on a pay-per-view coming up in Australia. So, I mean, that's a good move for him, I guess. So, yeah, hopefully we keep all 5. Fights on a Tuesday is always great. Once again, if you want the picks, hit the link in the description and hit the follow on Instagram. You'll get updated when they're available there. But other than that, hit the sub to support the channel, and we'll be back once again after this with Week 5. So stay tuned. We're going to be doing these every week for the Contender Series, as always, with the UFC previews as well. So stay tuned for that. You can follow me on the medias at HeyJadPicks. Where can they find you?
All social medias at the Parlay MMA.
All right, till the next video, the double leg here. Signing off.